Da, 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 da.
Game of Thrones, freaking Game of Thrones.
It's back, ladies and gentlemen. The world of Game of Thrones is back. Westeros is back, and we are here for it. Welcome to our special after show, our first after show of Game of Thrones' new show, of course, House of the Dragon. We are so stoked for this. Watch the first episode yesterday. In case you didn't know, this is a full open spoiler discussion, which means we're going to be talking about all the details of the show. We will be talking in spoiler format. So if you have not watched the first episode of House of the Dragon yet and you don't want to be spoiled, well, just add this video to your favorites list and come back a little bit later. Otherwise, you have been warned. I am joined here right now, sitting at the table, is Kris Carr. Kris, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I finally watched the episode. I was finally able to.
Because you had a whole bunch of problems. We'll talk about that in a second. And you don't see him right now. You might be able to hear him. Robert Meyer Burnett is back there. He'll be tagging in.
My eardrum is bleeding.
He'll be tagging in just a little bit. But I mean, first, let's chat about this just for a second. Of course, you had some drama.
Yes,
trying to watch this. A lot of people had drama trying to watch this. Of course, there's been stories of a lot of crashing on the site, that people having issues trying to watch it. Now, HBO came out with a press thing and said, oh, it only affected about 3,000 to 3,500 people. That's a lot of BS, because like in all my social medias and everything, I'm just being flooded by people saying I couldn't watch it. I had all these problems, blah, blah, blah. I initially had a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
But it remedied itself fairly quickly. I've heard from people who had problems like yourself on Amazon Fire Stick, which is what they're saying. It only affected people on Amazon Fire Stick, but that is not true, because I heard from a lot of people who are not on Amazon, whether they're on Roku or was it Roku? I can't remember, or an Apple TV or Chromecast. We're having issues. So it affected a lot of people, but it did all get straightened out.
Yes.
You were able to watch it. What are your first impressions of this first episode of House of the Dragon?
Oh man, this is a great setup episode. Everything was really, really well done here. We meet our cast of characters. The chess pieces are all lined up, so we understand what the game is here, right? We understand the political issues that are going to unfold, which is really what Game of Thrones is always about. It's a political-based show about power grabs. So they did an excellent job of reintroducing us to the world of Westeros, reintroducing us to King's Landing, giving us some tasty little Easter eggs, like of what's to come too, from what we saw in Game of Thrones, right? Things being built and everything. But I liked it overall. I enjoyed it.
I thought it was a fabulous first episode. You know, I often talk about this. The best first episode I've ever seen of any television show was the first episode of NBC's Heroes.
Yeah.
Because that just set up the world. It set up everything so perfectly, and it left you on a little bit of a cliffhanger in the first episode, and you were like right into it. It does drive me crazy that a lot of modern shows, including some of the great modern shows, that it's like, you got to give it 3 or 4 or 5 episodes to get into it. And that's even for some of the great ones.
Yeah.
Like, I think Yellowstone is the best show on TV right now, but it takes a couple of episodes to really get into it. With this show, I was like, bang, the moment they start with the flashback to the flashback series, whole series of flashbacks.
Let's set up this prequel.
Once they start right off with the flashback, I think it was like 172 years, they say, before the events of, Daenerys and all that kind of stuff. It's right into it. Dude's on the Iron Throne. There's a squabble as to who gets to claim the throne. I believe that it was his one and only daughter.
Yes.
The Queen That Never Was, which is
such a good name.
Such a good name. I mean, I'd hate to carry that one around, but such a good name. Or what was it? His brother or his nephew? Or I can't remember what Daenerys was to him.
Actual connection.
Maybe,
Rob, do you remember?
I can't even remember what the actual connection was, because I never read the books. I'm not well versed in all the different mythology, but just that
uncle
right away
is what some people are saying.
Oh,
that doesn't sound right.
No.
So he was his nephew.
He was the king's nephew. Yeah. Okay, which makes sense. So that all set up, and then right from the there's a new one crowned, and you could even see. And by the way, I'll always mispronounce all these names. I will mispronounce all the names all the time. Viserys, sure,
yes,
Viserys. So Viserys, I love that even in that first moment that they say Viserys is going to be king, he didn't really want it. I mean, it kind of looks like, okay, he was like, okay. I'm king. Wow. I mean, his wife seemed to be happier about it than he was, but whatever. He becomes king. Just that whole like that circumstance they set up was filled with drama and intrigue and, oh, what's going to happen? And the fact that the kingdom very much lies in peril because a clear idea of who is in succession, all that kind of, even right off the bat, it was great. What do you think about that opening scene?
It's such a good example of showing, not telling. Because it cuts to
Right.
those two potential heirs, and you just see on their faces how they feel about the situation and how they feel about each other. And their spouses, too, do such a beautiful job in that scene of just looking to their partner and being like, either this is some bullshit or, ooh, okay, all right, we're moving to a new place. So it's just,
to a new place.
it's so well done. And yeah, just in those first few minutes, again, you're already set up for, okay, this is a political drama. So
Now, okay, so then they fast forward a bit. And I'm always going to mispronounce. You're going to hear me pronounce this name 17 different ways. I don't really care. Renaria?
Renara?
Renaria? Renaria? Let me see if I can look this up. I'll say Rainera? I don't care. Whatever. Rain. So Rain, our first introduction to her is just purely flying on a dragon.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our introduction to the character, flying on a dragon. And I mentioned this on the John Campea Show a little bit earlier today. It was a little bit funny to me that when the dragon was close up, there were close-up shots of the dragon, it looked very good.
Yeah.
When the dragon was far off, it looked a little video game-ish to me. And normally with CGI, that's the opposite. Like the further away something is, the more real it can look. But once it gets close, you see all the flaws.
Yeah.
But for this, it was, but whatever. It immediately comes in, it's flying over Westeros. You get to see the Red Keep, which is still under construction. But then you get to the Dragon Playpen, which of course is wrecked and ruined when we get into Game of Thrones. But it's one big solid piece there. I mean, you just, as it's going over and he's flying over the city and the little hints of the original score are playing, right? It's like, I knew I kind of missed Game of Thrones, but when the music started to play and they're flying over the city, it's like, oh wow, how happy I was to be home again, to be there in that world. And it really does help. I think it was a brilliant choice. I don't know if it was because I didn't read the books. I don't know if it was a George R.R. issue or it was a television show issue, but just the idea that the Targaryens, they all have this signature white hair. I'm sure it probably came from the books, but just that alone made you just feel like, oh yeah, we're back in Westeros because it's so recognizable. It's a tangible thing, Rob. It's a tangible thing. You can actually reach out and touch. They have that sort of thing. The stylings, and then seeing the Iron Throne again for the first time.
With a lot more iron around it.
With a hell of a lot more iron around that, which apparently, again, I don't read the books, but apparently everybody says is actually more true to the books, was this particular setting with this set decoration and all that kind of stuff. It just did a great job. It never had to convince me this was part of that world. When I would watch things like, I don't know, let's say Clone Wars or something like that. And I know there are going to be people who disagree with me. I'm just talking about my own personal experience. That's just my own personal experience. When I was watching something like Clone Wars, I never really got around to connecting it to Star Wars. I just never felt like I was watching Star Wars. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Even with, and that's happened at other times too. But this, right away, I just felt I was back. Oh, how good or did it leave it wanting for you? How good of a job did this show do making you feel like you were right back in Lord of the Rings again, in Game of Thrones again?
I mean, an excellent job. There was a moment, though, when I was watching it of just, well, fashion really hasn't changed much in 172 years, apparently, in the world of Westeros. But I think that's something that the creators and the creative team had to be very, very cognizant of, is this had to feel aesthetically like the Game of Thrones that we all knew and loved, or ended up hating in the end, however you feel about it. But I think they did a really, really good job immersing you in that world. And again, a lot of it too was just even little bits of dialogue, little tiny moments when the girls are talking about their history and they're talking about Nymeria.
Yes.
I mean, that's Arya Stark's direwolf's name. There's just little things where you're like, wait, why do I know that name? Why do I know this? Just the dialogue in itself too. And just seeing those positions of power, seeing the Great Council, all of those things really just harken back to the show that we all watched before.
By the way, you brought up the thing about when she's with her friend Alicent.
Yes.
Alicent?
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 I need another week to learn everyone's names.
No, it's gonna. I need 6 more weeks. Okay, so just deal with it. I'm gonna be mispronouncing these names for like the next 6 weeks. So just deal with it.
I've got an accent, so I always will.
I'm a huge Khabib Nurmagomedov fan, but it took me 4 years to say his name properly. So anyway, that relationship set up so beautifully, so nice, and I love that relationship immediately. Also, with I didn't realize at first that she was the Hands, Rhys Ifans' daughter, until of course the games came. Okay, I know we're jumping ahead a bit here.
Oh yeah,
but obviously the most uncomfortable I felt was during that whole brilliant cut back and forth juxtaposition scene of the child labor and the fighting going on at the joust tournament.
Yep. But
the ickiest feeling was when Rhys Ifans, who clearly loves his daughter, all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, go comfort the king. Obviously that's 3 martinis earlier speak for go have sex with the king. Do it. I mean, it's like, did that just happen? Is that what's happening here? Like, it's just, how did you feel about that scene? Because
it was so uncomfortable, and I truly love, and I think, again, this is a testament to the writing of this episode, but this actress's acting chops. Oh my gosh. That moment of, exactly, she's like, oh, I know what he just told me to go do. But then I wouldn't know what to say to him. I wouldn't know what to talk to him about. And he's like, oh, you'll find the words. and then for her to bring in that book and sit as far away from him as possible too, like, she knows what she's doing. And I think in the long run, she's going to be able to make this, whatever this relationship's going to become, right, work in her favor. And she's not going to have to compromise herself too much in terms of like how women in Westeros have to compromise themselves constantly. But man, to have your own dad be like, hey, my friend's sad. You know what would cheer him up? Like that. Oh, ugh.
Like a good injection of vitamin B, booty. That's what we need to get. The king needs some vitamin B. Yeah, listen, and I already read some people in the chat saying like he was willing to pimp out his own daughter because he has ambitions. And again,
cool, so do I.
As somebody who doesn't know, who hasn't read the books, all right, so I actually interpret it a little bit differently because I think not living in a monarchy, we don't think on these terms. But what I saw Lord Hightower doing, Rhys Ifans, was literally, I just kind of interpreted it as him being, this is our duty. That's our king. And I can't comfort him. And I'm going to send you to go comfort him because he is our king. I
totally thought it was a power play.
Think so?
Yeah, because
you may be right. I mean, you may probably be right.
He's so adamant about Daemon not taking the throne and not being the heir that I think it was we need another uterus. Like, I really think that he's just like,
I didn't even think about that. Maybe you can.
And he would like that. I think he wants to have that connection to the king still too, because we also have that issue that comes up later. You're the one who put Daemon in this power position. You're the one who did this. And I think he wants to make sure that his position as the hand is very, very secure.
You're probably right about that.
It's also protection because the uncle is pretty much like, I want to kill you and your family.
And Daemon was kind of flirty with her too at the jousting. Where he's like, I want your favor.
He was doing that to rub it in the hand's face.
Yeah.
He was doing that to rub it in Hightower's face, which is, I think, the reason why she turned around and looked back at him. But going into from the ickiness of him sending her to deliver the vitamin B, once she gets into the room, though, it's actually oddly tender.
It's very sweet. I really like her. And again, I think it speaks to her being a smart but also compassionate person of, I'm just going to try to connect with you about grief.
Yeah, and he wasn't trying to take advantage. The king wasn't trying to take advantage of the situation either. And I love the line. Yeah, I love the line when she says, "When my mother died, all I wanted to do was somebody to say I'm sorry. That's all I wanted. So I'm sorry for what happened to you." And that was a beautiful, tender moment. They maintained their distance. He just kept working on his toy train set, and which was gorgeous, by the way.
It was so beautiful.
Which was absolutely beautiful. And we segued out of that. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. By the way, guys, we're going to talk for a few minutes more, and then we're going to throw it open to you guys in the super chats. So if you guys have a thought, opinion, observation, theory, whatever about House of the Dragon episode 1, go ahead and fire that in. We'll get to that in the second half of the show. But we got to get around to as great as Patty Considine was, as great as Risa Fons was, as great as all the girls were, I got to talk about Matt Smith. Matt Smith is Daemon Targaryen. That's the easy name to say, Daemon. That one's easy. I can say that one. As Daemon Targaryen, so stole this. Because he was able, anybody can come in and play, I'm the mustache twirling villain. Anybody can do that. But like from the moment when he meets Rain, who I'm going to call her till I get the name pronunciation right, while he's sitting on the Iron Throne, she's going, you could be executed for treason for sitting on there. You could see there is genuine familial love there. And where it really showed most was at her mother's funeral. When he very tenderly just came up behind her to remind her, everybody's waiting for you. But he didn't do it, girl, everybody's waiting. There was a tenderness to it. And I love it when movies or shows can show us multiple dimensions that, somebody can be an asshole, but it doesn't mean they're always an asshole. Somebody can be a really nice guy, but it doesn't mean they can't sometimes be an asshole. This guy who's going around cutting off hands and slicing off wieners, he's the same guy who was very tender with his family.
That was a deserved wiener slice.
And maybe a little bit of a deserved one. But even in the post-show interview with Matt Smith, Matt Smith was even talking about, no, he loves his brother. He may think his brother's weak, but he loves his brother. He actually loves his family. He loves his little mistress in the horror house. He loves his dragon. God bless him. He loves his dragon. And I love that they're showing us this multiple dimensions of this character right away. He's vicious. He's ruthless. He's violent. And yet at the same time, he can be kind. He can be... And I love it when movies or shows gives us characters like this. What do you think about when you think of Matt Smith's Daemon Targaryen character?
I'm so happy that Matt Smith is getting a win.
Yeah.
I'm so happy because I love him as an actor. And I've just, the last few years gone, what is your team doing with you, bud?
Well, I mean, there was, of course, The Crown. He
was great on The Crown.
Great.
He was wonderful on that.
And then, of course, there was Morbius, which is the next level up.
His film options have been...
No, not the next level
Morbius,
up with Morbius,
that wasn't for me.
Okay.
That wasn't
fair enough. I'll allow it.
Oh, thank you. But so it's so nice to see him doing well in a show and giving something so much dimension because no one ever thinks they're the villain. And certainly Game of Thrones is known for having some real literal bastards in their, cast of characters. Excuse me, I sound like I'm going through puberty. Okay. Joffrey obviously had very little redeeming qualities about him. So it's really nice to see somebody who does have all of that rage and ruthlessness, like you were saying, stem from a familial love place and a sense of duty, too. A lot of it comes from, our forefathers ran this town in this way. And since the loss of our grandmother, we've seen this decline. We've seen all these things. We need to elevate the Targaryen name. We need to be the kingdom that once was. And you guys aren't doing the job right.
A lot of... I would say oddly well-placed, properly used name drops too, because sometimes, I remember one of the things that drove me crazy about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was that it never could be its own show. It always relied on, hey guys, we're part of the MCU, and let's mention Iron Man as much as we can, and let's mention Thor as much as we can. But in House of the Dragon, it was different. It's like, hey, they said Dorne. Hey, that guy's name is Baratheon.
Yeah.
That guy's a Stark. He said Winterfell. But it was all in the right context, right? Like that whole scene near the end, and I know we're jumping all over the place to the episode, but when he names his heir, as that Rain is his heir, and then everybody had to come and pledge fealty to this one who is not yet queen. I mean, and all the names that we see and we recognize, all the houses, the great houses coming in and pledging that fealty. That was just a great moment, a powerful moment. But let's talk for a second about the gruesomeness of that dual scene going on between, the violence in the jousting tournament, which turned into an F you, I'm going to smash your head in tournament. I don't know how jousting turned into that, but that's fine. It's Westeros. That's the way it works.
Medieval times made it look so different.
Yeah, it looked so much fun. What went wrong? But then you got of course, the childbearing and the childbirth scene. And the choice that the king had to make, which you can get into the shows and it's like, yeah, they're in the brothel and yeah, Daemon's banging somebody. Yeah, and the mallet to the face. But at the same time, your heart starts to break for this father who is faced with this choice and the woman he loves and he's just got to hold her hand and say, hey, everything's okay. Everything's okay. And my heart was breaking at the same time. Anyway, talk about that whole sequence and the reactions you had to it.
Okay, first of all, this actress is incredible. She was on Sherlock season 3, I believe, playing Sherlock's sister. She is wonderful. This scene is heartbreaking because at one point, you're going back to seeing the jousting, and it's, oh my gosh, look at all the house sigils. Oh yay, Game of Thrones. Oh yeah, the Baratheons. Oh my gosh. And then you cut back to this, and the minute she realizes this is not right.
Yeah.
Oh, it is so hard to watch. John could hear me from my office, y'all, because I was watching this and I go, oh no. Once they pulled that knife out and John was like, I know what you're watching.
Yep.
Gosh, it was so uncomfortable to watch. And this is another scene too, where Patty, I think, just did beautiful work. I mean,
killed it.
He is such a compelling actor and can just run the gamut. I first fell in love with him in Hot Fuzz. As one of the Andys. I think he's so incredible. And just the heartbreak and tenderness on his face when he says, the baby's going to come now.
Yeah.
Before they move her off the pillow. Oh, and honestly, this is going to sound weird, but I am happy with the restraint used in this scene, because this could have been far more grisly than it actually was.
Very Eli Roth hostile.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, good.
They could have really gone that way, yeah.
And I do think that they did a great job showing us the brutality of this and the just absolute dismay of this family having to make this choice without getting too far into like just horror porn, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it was. Like horror porn is what they could have done, and could have gone into. I mean, for me, it was they struck a great balance. I said on the show today that I appreciate the fact that, like the boys did when A-Train ran through Huey's girlfriend to set to say right away, guys, this is what this show is. I like the fact that they came out and say, listen, guys, just a reminder, this is Westeros. Horrible things are going to happen here. Violent things are going to happen here, and they come out of the gate, but they didn't do it by sacrificing real narrative and real emotional scenes and getting us invested into it. Because I'll tell you what, that scene when he finally brings his daughter into the dragon skull room and basically lets her know, you are going to be my heir. And there's a few things you got to understand. That throne ain't a prize. That's the most dangerous place in Westeros to be, is on that throne. And number 2, and then we get a glimpse into the prophecy about winter is coming. And, and that at some days the White Walkers are going to come, and a Targaryen has to be on. There's going to be a Targaryen that kind of reunites everybody, which is, of course, we now know that is a foreshadowing of Jon Snow. But I mean, it was such a beautiful scene. Like, we just met these guys. This was episode 1.
Yeah.
This was episode 1. And when I was watching the scene, I felt her lifetime of not being good enough for her father. Her lifetime of feeling that she will never be the one to bring her father joy. And all of that was brought to a head in this one scene. We've only been watching this show for about 45 minutes at this point, and they did such a great job of bringing it to the forefront, and it hit me. What did you think about this scene in particular?
In this one, this is, again, it's a testament to the writing and everything. When you strip away all the fantastical elements of this, sure, there's a dragon in the background. Sure, they're in costumes and have wigs on. It is a family drama. And when you take away all of that, and I am still intrigued by what's going on in the show, that is excellent, excellent storytelling. If I could just watch these two, it's like watching an episode of Succession, honestly, of just watching a child vie for their father's attention, love, and respect. And it's so well done. It's so well done.
Oh, boy.
I love it. And as an eldest daughter, too, I was just like, oh, girl, I get you. I get you.
And by the way, it's funny how just the right sound effect at the right moment changes the tone of a scene. When the mother dies and the maester walks in and goes, congratulations, Your Highness, you have a son. And then you hear the cooing. And we're like, oh, fuck. that kid's going to die, isn't he? And then you see the little body wrapped up, and I mean, they hit the visceral stuff that we want, the violence and the nudity, like all these illicit visceral stuff that they want to do, but they put it together in this beautiful package with great characters, great story. And again, listen, I don't know if this show's going to go off the rails after this. I don't know if we're going to be talking about this 2 months from now and saying, man, what a disappointment that show was. But they are, like, to me, I don't know how you start this any stronger. They laid all that foundation, even in the war room, bringing up the guy who was uniting the various states together, and they got rid of the pirates. Like, even that, well, that's going to be an important thing moving forward. Like, they just did such a great job. If you had to try to pinpoint anything that maybe you thought this episode maybe was a little bit weak on, or maybe could have done a little bit better, what do you think that would have been for you?
Honestly, I'm pretty happy with everything we saw here. I wish I remembered everyone's names more, but that's on me. Honestly, I went into this, I was talking to Rob about this before we got on the show too. Was it something that completely blew my hair back? Did this change my way I viewed television? No, but that wasn't its job. Its job was to reintroduce me to the world of Westeros and get me excited about this cast that, is telling a story that happened almost 200 years before the show that I've watched. And they did such a good job, and they did it without a lot of sexposition. A lot of times Game of Thrones in the past has relied on, hey, we're going to tell you a plot point, but also here are some boobs.
So you meant, okay, so you did purposely say sexposition.
I did, yeah.
Well played.
I love that you were like, I'm not going to call you out yet, but this might be your kiss. But no, because in the past, they would have a scene about political intrigue in a brothel. And so they'd be getting into a plot point, but in case the viewers didn't want to pay attention, they threw us some tits. And I think this treated the audience a little smarter. I liked that.
Oh, I'm harking back to Pedro Pascal scenes. I see something that I think is beautiful, and it gives me pleasure. I see something else that is beautiful, and it gives me pleasure.
Oh, he was so good on that show.
He was pretty damn good on that show. By the way, can I bring up one other scene that struck me really well? Because after the king's son dies, and he's on the Iron Throne, and he summons Daemon to come in with the whole heir for a day comment. And he says, did you say it? Did you say that? And great response by Daemon says, we all grieve in our own way. Like, even I'm sitting there saying, okay, the king's hurt, but he's making too big of a deal out of this. Okay, because who knows what he meant when he said heir for a day. Maybe he meant it sorrowfully, right? But then, like, I love it when characters catch us as the audience off guard. Because Viserys says something really smart. He says, my family died. And instead of coming and being with me, you were off celebrating with your buddies? And I'm like, oh yeah, fuck that guy. Yeah. Because at first, like, Daemon comes walking into the throne room, like, oh, come on. Yeah, he made a dumb comment. Don't be sad. Oh, wait a minute. No. Fuck him. That was awful what he did.
Can we also talk about how there's two moments in this episode of, hey, maybe it's a bad idea to have a throne made out of swords?
Yes.
Like, what?
Because clearly he's going to die from that wound on his back, right? Like, and that wound probably he got from the thing, and then he cut himself on it again later. It's a dangerous place. Maybe that's what he meant.
He's going to get tetanus.
Yeah, he's. Oh, you know what? He's going to get. What did Mormont have in Game of Thrones? What was the name of that disease that he had to go off?
Grayscale.
Grayscale.
Is this like the origin of grayscale? I mean, I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
That'd be
possibility.
Cool.
I don't know.
Probably more interesting than tetanus.
Probably more interesting. But I mean, ultimately, that's going to kill him. That the throne kills him, which gives a whole more meaning to when he says to his daughter, like, that's the most dangerous place to be. No, I'm not talking figuratively. I mean, really.
Literally.
That's a collection of knives.
Wrap yourself in some pillows.
Anyway, guys, listen. We are going to talk a lot more about it, but we're going to talk about the episode at your behest, because from here on out, we're just going to go on what you guys want to talk about and have to say about this first episode of the House of the Dragon. Now, before we get into all that, though, we want to take a second and thank the sponsor of this episode, our friends at Mint Mobile. Hey, guys, we want to take a second and thank the sponsor of this video, Ryan Reynolds, and specifically his delightful company, Mint Mobile. So look, after years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't a catch. And guys, this is no joke. I have been using Mint Mobile for months now. And on top of the fact that I'm spending literally about 1/3 every month of what I was spending on my former major carrier, I've discovered no decline in my service. I kept my phone number and I was able to keep my phone. The switch from my old service to Mint Mobile couldn't have been easier and saved me more money. And the best part for anybody who just hates their phone bills is that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea.
And a special thanks to Mint Mobile, the sponsor of this after show of House of the Dragon. Well, look, I used sorcery and transformed myself.
Ooh.
I wanted to say things, first of all, since I just got on the show.
Yeah, welcome.
I quite enjoyed this episode, especially as a setup to what the show is. I thought it did a great job setting up the whole thing, as you said. One of the things, though, that I find interesting about this show is I would imagine that is not going to have the scope of the original Game of Thrones, because the original Game of Thrones was all about these different places. We're jumping from King's Landing to Winterfell to Dorne to all these other places. And I kind of like the idea that we're going to be concentrating on family intrigue. Yeah. It's like another version of HBO's Succession, and what I also, I like that because I think that the show, that's what's going to separate the shows, that we're not going to be jumping all over the place. Now, everyone's going to have allies all around the world. And we, of course, met a gladiator, a jouster, a knight from Dorne, the handsome guy.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that I would expect this to be a more insular show than Game of Thrones.
For sure.
And I think that's what's going to set it apart. I don't expect this to go 7 seasons or 8 seasons.
Yeah, I would doubt that.
I just wanted to say that before we jumped into your questions.
Yay!
And what are your questions?
We'll start with Ryan Lohner. Can you see
From
that?
Ryan Lohner. Rhaena is the daughter of a Baratheon, so I guess we're now just ignoring the whole black hair over blonde thing that started the mess in Game of Thrones.
Are we? I mean, that is true. But the thing is, I think at the time, Robert Baratheon, you might be a daughter, but it was, I don't think it's quite the same thing.
Her
because
mom was blonde.
Yeah, and the Targaryen bloodline's pretty much dominant now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more Targaryens around than there were before. I mean, there were later in Thrones.
Exactly, yeah.
So...
All right, from Francisco Gomez Vega. Watching the guy stop having sex in the background to hear Damon's toast, but remaining in that position with his partner was so weird. I mean, if you're already having sex in the streets with all your bros around, do you really think you're going to be like, hey, sweets, can you get off for a second? Like, I don't think you're one for decorum.
No, and it seems to me like in this particular instance, I mean, we see people at latticework structures watching the insides of what's going on in the House of Pleasure. I mean, there isn't a lot of the intimacy. It's a little bit more open in this society.
Yeah.
I mean, open like zoo animal open.
For sure.
It's weird.
The lattice scene was wild.
Yeah, they're all like,
everyone's
looking...
like, what's Matt Smith doing in here?
I kept waiting to see somebody giving like 9, 10, 8, like the Olympic
They weren't
judges.
happy with the dismount, though.
Yeah, no.
No one was.
He didn't finish.
Mm-mm. From Hero75. Personally, one of the best parts of this great show is that as a book reader, I can sit back and grin while watching with my non-book reader friends, for I know and notice things they don't.
Well, that was true, like especially in the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
If nobody had read those books, I mean, there was a demarcation point. I mean, there was all those videos of people who'd read the books with their phones out, like watching and waiting to see what people, how they reacted. But again, as from what I understand, this is only one of a 2-book series. That the second book.
Right. What is this?
Well,
one?
this is it's Blood and Fire.
There we go.
And I think that there's only going to be 2 of these books anyway. So there's less to know. You only have to read one book to know what's going on.
But that is a fun moment, though, right? When you're like just. Like when we watch comic book movies, you turn to your friend and go, you don't know who's going to get betrayed.
It's like thinking about, is Rogue going to show up and steal Carol Danvers' power?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it that way. From Corey R. Last night, I was right back in Westeros. I really hope they keep this up. There were some cool subtle nods at things to come in this story, too. Ooh, yeah.
Oh, I thought so, too. What I loved was seeing where they keep the dragons. That big, gigantic building. I was like, and I when I was watching last night, because I have not read this book, I'm like, what is that big build? And then, of course, they answer that question immediately where they show you where they keep the dragons. And we know what they have. The Targaryens have 10 dragons.
Yeah.
So that big building, which, of course, is not there at the time of
Nope.
Game of Thrones, which I can't wait to see the demise. Well, I guess we won't see the entire demise of that building, but still. I loved seeing that. I love seeing like, oh, there's something new that I haven't seen before. Look at that.
Exactly. That's why we were talking about this, the intro I'm so excited for, of seeing how that's different.
Are they going to keep this? I mean, they're going to keep the same theme, I've heard.
I would hope so. Okay.
But then are they going to keep that same? Because wouldn't it all be just King's Landing? I don't know.
Yeah, but maybe we get really specific with it.
Yes.
I think the
That'd be
show's
fun.
going to expand too. I don't think it's just going to be King.
No, I'm sure it will too. But I mean, it can't be like, I don't think you're going to jump away to the ski. Well, maybe.
It's Epcot right now. We're starting off,
Right.
over in the UK, and we're going to go expand to everywhere else. We're going to drink around the world.
Meanwhile, at the Iron Bank,
Yeah.
you know,
From Mike's Movie Madness. Also, I feel like Daemon might be the first Game of Thrones villain where he's not evil to be evil, like Joffrey or Ramsay. I feel there are layers to him. We all agree.
I do too. And I think he loves his family.
So much.
You know, and he cares. And like, even when he was being ruthless in the streets, taking out all those the bad element, and he might have been enjoying it way too much, he still said, well, look, you did say that the city is falling into, it needs to be, we got to clean it up.
Yeah. The ends justify the means to him.
To him.
Yeah. That's good writing. From Dr. Stinky. I kind of like it, but I woke up to a sex scene. Ugh. In Game of Thrones, there's a lot of sex, buddy.
You woke
Also, he
up.
was
But you woke up to a sex scene?
Like happening to you? Or are you watching the show? Because either way, it's good for me. Just saying.
There's more sex, so just be prepared for that. Sam Fisher. I groaned and rolled my eyes at the Song of Ice and Fire name drop at the end. It felt so forced. I disagree, but I understand that, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, but I mean, I always thought the title Lord of the Rings would be, isn't that what Bilbo or that Frodo was writing in the book, and they're there and back again or whatever. But that didn't bother me because I like the fact that they incorporated that. It sounds like a legendarium term.
Well, and they're such a prophecy-based society.
Right.
So it felt like, oh yeah, this is a prophecy. These are these things we talk about. That all their history books at the very beginning of the episode, that history lesson was steeped with, here's this kind of iconography that goes with this tale.
And it makes sense that the Song of Ice and Fire is what Game of Thrones was. So that legend sticks around for a while.
Yeah.
So it didn't bother me.
And Ned Stark hammered home how many times prophecy to his kids?
Right.
It's like
Many times.
yeah.
Many times.
From Kurt, I knew people were ready to go back to Westeros back when people kept bringing up Game of Thrones when talking about Arcane. Absence makes the heart grow fonder indeed.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Arcane too. I mean, Arcane is such a triumph. Not to say that Dota Dragon's Blood isn't.
Also a triumph.
But Arcane is such a great show. But I think, look, Game of Thrones was one of the most engrossing TV shows because it had such a rich mythology and it had so many characters, and you never knew from what. I mean, just watch the opening credits, like, oh, we're going to go there again.
It's such a zeitgeist show.
Yes.
Even if you aren't a fantasy fan, you were watching Game of Thrones.
It's true. I just wonder, like, the very idea of a familial civil war, which we are getting on Succession in a way. I'm going to be more curious to see how fresh they keep this show.
Yeah, same.
And how are they going to keep this particular tract of storytelling, that family, the internecine war of a familial dispute. How are they going to make that feel as engrossing as Game of Thrones was? Or are they?
Yeah, we're going to see. From Movie Fan 109, sending in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Movie Fan.
Thanks, Movie Fan.
I love the show. I drive a truck for a living, so I'm always in a different state. Thank you guys for always making my drives more fun. Rob, check your DMs. Are you in? Oh.
Are
you in for what?
I have to check my DMs. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I have so many DMs where people are asking me, will you do this? Will you do that? Are you in? Is everybody in the ceremony?
Well, you tell people on the show constantly to slide
do.
into your DMs, especially if they have physical media for you.
That is true. Some people have all kinds of things for me that I have to say no to, though.
Check those DMs, Movie Fan. We'll get back to you hopefully soon. From Sam Fisher again, it felt pretty obvious that the baby was either going to die or be a girl, because then there's no question of succession and therefore no plot. But it also felt obvious that the queen was going to die. Did you feel that way?
I mean, obvious. I saw it as a natural progression to kick off the story. I mean, these are stories that are full of things that we've seen before in other kinds of stories. So, look, I think that I didn't expect the fact that Patty Considine that he was going to be so doomed.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't.
What a tragic man.
Yeah, they cut to, you've got like some staph infection. That's going to either be dragon scale, or it's going to be something awful that's going to kill you. And I felt bad for him. And then, of course, I mean, his wife. The thing is, it doesn't bother me. I don't feel it's too gratuitous when they do stuff like killing women in childbirth, because, like they say in the show, 50%. It was horrible, horrible. To every time a woman got pregnant, it was a risk. Her life was on the line. And nowadays, we just take it for granted that we have the kind of medical technology. So it's a harrowing. I'm so glad I don't live in the dark ages, the Middle Ages, the
For sure.
10th century.
I suspended my disbelief so much. I mean, Taylor was in the office with me when I was watching this, and I was just screaming at my laptop, where I was just like, how dare you do this to your wife? I hope that baby's a girl.
Oh.
I hope this baby hates you. And then I was like, oh, the baby. And I knew this was going to happen because we had to have a power struggle. But also, Game of Thrones has never shied away from killing women, children, kings or queens or anything. So I thought maybe that kid could grow up and then we have a power struggle. I mean, they pushed somebody out of a window in the first episode of Game of Thrones.
A kid.
A kid.
And then they burn another princess at the stake.
Yep.
They'll do anything in this show.
Yeah, so I understand why I could see that was very, very foreshadowed, but I was just ready for anyone to die.
Yeah, it was, but that was so harsh.
It was really, really harsh.
Brutal.
From Mike's Movies Madness again, this episode wasted no time getting me reinvested into the world of Westeros. As a diehard fan of the OG series and a book fan, I already love where the show is heading. Can't wait to see the rest.
No, I agree. I mean, I think this is a really strong, what I really liked about this episode was it very clearly stated where this show is going. You don't have to ask yourself, well, I wonder, it gets good in the 4th episode. No, I'm already in. I'm already invested. So, and I really, I was listening to it was George R.R. Martin, like a 5-minute YouTube video that it sort of went into the backgrounds of all the characters that we're meeting and who is involved with whom, and because a lot of these people came from other places. And it was really interesting to find out like where they all came from. So I'm looking forward to all of that coming into play later on in the show.
Yeah. From Tim Platt, didn't love the episode, but it was enough for me to stick around. Dame is my early favorite, character I'm most interested in. Definitely my.
Well, how can you not be?
Yeah.
I mean, because he's a man of wealth and taste, and he's the guy that's going to get into the mix. And watching him both fight as a knight and then also cleaning up the streets, and then rooting around the seat of power, figuring out
and fighting dirty in that jousting tournament.
Oh yeah,
that dude has layers.
He has layers.
Man, oh man.
An onion.
From Sam Fisher, picking between Daemon and Rhaenyra feels like Vito picking between Sonny and Michael. Daemon would make a good wartime king.
Yeah, he might. The problem is he likes his appetites too much. One day they will get the best of him. They will consume him. Just like Ramsay Bolton before him or Joffrey Baratheon before Ramsay. I mean, these are men that you have to have heart. You talk about The Godfather. The reason that Michael could never be Vito is because Michael was too logical. He was too much of a statistician, and he didn't use his heart in his decision making. He was too logical and ruthless, and that's why he killed his own brother, and that's why he lost his soul.
Well said, Rob. Excellent. Oh my goodness.
For anyone that hasn't seen The Godfather.
Yeah.
Oh, oops.
It's okay.
Spoiler alert.
It's only 40-some years old.
I was going to say, if you haven't seen this 40-year-old movie.
Your fault.
Actually, it's the 50th anniversary this year.
Dang. Oh my
So that was
gosh.
no excuse.
Aw.
Sorry, though.
You're all good. From Francisco Gomez Vega. In February, I got to witness the C-section surgery that gave birth to my 6-month-old son. Yesterday was tough to watch, but it was an awesome show.
Wow. Well, at least your son's healthy.
I was going to say, what you saw was so very different from that, in that, modern medicine.
Boy.
Oh, a couple of my friends have had C-sections. They're like, oh, yeah, well, you just alien your baby.
Yeah, at least they have anesthesia.
Yeah.
Not just the milk of the poppy.
Oh, yeah, that scene was brutal.
Just because you're high doesn't mean it isn't going to hurt.
Yeah. Oof. From Sam Fisher. While I didn't like the character, I thought Matt Smith did a good job. I thought they all did acting-wise.
I agree. I thought the acting was great.
Yeah, there was not
a
clunker in the group. I thought this was wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. From Tim Platt again, I've never fast-forwarded a moment in Game of Thrones due to violence, but that birth scene was gruesome on an entirely different level.
Yeah.
See, this is so interesting to me because there are so many things that I find much more gruesome that have happened in Game of Thrones than that scene.
Well, I think
they handled it delicately.
But it was so. I mean, I like that woman.
Mm-hmm. She's lovely.
You want to help her, and then you want the baby to be born, and not only was just the fact that how much that must have hurt, and you're hearing her scream, and
you're very emotionally connected.
Yes.
But again, it's one of those things where they showed us a lot less than they could have. We have seen people's faces smashed in.
And we got a little of that too.
Yeah.
And then left behind as they drag
and
away.
behind, ball sacks removed. So I think this is very, very interesting. And I wonder if it's because of the emotional component, because of the acting, that moment before of, oh my gosh, I know this is not going to end well, that actress did so beautifully. I mean, I'm interested to see why that is something that is so visceral and gruesome for everyone, as opposed to the other outright moments of violence.
Yeah, the loss of testicles, for instance.
Yeah.
The way that was done, it was like,
maybe because it was slow and methodical, whereas you hit your bash, it's quick, but
that's true.
Yeah.
That's
slowly
true.
cutting in and digging in, it's just like slow and
Yeah.
it's like a dull spoon. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. From Milo, can studios please hire hairstylists that understand black hair texture? The wig on the young black girl was a crime. Great episode though.
Yeah, I actually did an episode of my own show, Robservations, about that, about how there are not enough makeup and hair artists in Hollywood that know how to work with people who have darker skin and that kind of hair.
Which is ridiculous.
It is, and it's really hard to deal with because it's very different.
Yeah.
So
Shout
hard
out
to do.
my friend Kim Graysick. She was one of the makeup artists on Doctor Strange. She worked on Mayans extensively for a really, really long time, and that's one of her specializations.
Yeah.
But she was like, it shouldn't be a specialization. Like,
No.
people should just know how to do makeup for any human being. This is ridiculous.
Yes.
So shout out, Kim. You're awesome. From Sam Fisher, 2 parts here. I really thought this would go to the Civil War route where you can root for either Daemon or Rhaenyra to win, but 20 minutes in, I wanted Daemon dead. I'm sure allegations will change because allegiances, I'm sure allegiances will change because it's Game of Thrones, and Daemon will do something redeeming and Rhaenyra something awful. But right now, I don't like Daemon.
I mean, that's the way it goes on this
Yeah.
show. I mean, I think that's one of the appeals of this show. I mean, in the original Game of Thrones, Jaime Lannister, at first you hate him, and then through his relationship with Brienne of Tarth, you suddenly become more sympathetic to him, and you realize there's more layers to him than when he's first introduced.
And then they took that concept and just yeeted it out.
Yeah, they threw it away.
In my opinion.
Oh, in my opinion too. He just
A moment of silence for Jamie. Here we go.
All right. From Josh Becker. Love the episode, but couldn't stomach the birth scene. Yeah.
I see what he did there.
Yeah.
No one could.
No one could.
Not good.
I was happy I finished my salad right before it.
Yeah, it's.
James Argenta. King Jaehaerys from the prologue was played. Sorry if I butchered the name, you guys. From the prologue was played by Michael Carter, who was Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi. Also, an opening title sequence will start in episode 2.
Yeah, I did not know that about Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, that's a cool bit of trivia.
You are longer.
Oh, I love this. Excellent, excellent. All right. From Ahmed. Hey, John. Or Rob and Kris.
Hey.
Do you think House of the Dragon had a good marketing campaign? And what constitutes as a good marketing campaign? As I hear you talk about marketing campaigns a lot, when something does well or not.
Well, I think a good marketing campaign's self-evident. Are you excited about the show?
Are you aware of it?
Yeah, so you're aware of it. You're excited about it. I mean, one, I love the fact that they're leaning into. They have an iconography, a Game of Thrones iconography. The Game of Thrones logo is known. The way that the fonts look is known. But the trailers have been terrific.
Yes.
And I think that HBO does. They put $100 million of marketing behind this show, and I think they are doing a great job. But that's what a marketing campaign does. If you're aware of something and you're excited about it, that marketing campaign has done its job.
Exactly. Let me dust off my communications degree. Brand recognition is important, right?
Yes.
And brand unity is very important. So having all of the same text, even down to the music, having a similar thread, that same through line of the original Game of Thrones soundtrack is very, very important here.
Yep.
The iconography, not changing up the costuming too much, that white hair, all of these things, they make you go, oh yeah, Game of Thrones. That show that became part of the cultural zeitgeist.
What I find interesting about the world that we live in now is 10 years from now, House of the Dragon, people will watch it first. They won't be thinking like, well, it was a prequel to Game of Thrones. They won't think that way. Just like the Star Wars prequels now. I mean, we old school farts like myself that were around seeing it when it first came out. Well, no, you have to watch episodes 4, 5, and 6 first. No kid who's like 10 years old today is going to be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
They're going to watch episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Mm-hmm. You can convince them of not doing it any other way, because why would you do it any other way? But then again, they have modern math too. So do they know everything?
That's true. Modern math's so weird. From Christian Rower, there's so many times I pointed at the screen and said, I recognize that one guy from that one show. I loved it. Yeah. I love that. There's an ongoing joke of like, England has about 7 actors and we constantly see them used over and over again. Because there was, oh my gosh, I love that guy's Doctor Who episode about World War II. Like throughout the whole thing.
It's true, but I mean, that's why that colony, the UK is just an island of actors.
Yeah.
That's the only people that live there.
They're just brilliant and talented.
That's it.
Oh my gosh, man, they just churn out talent over there.
Loved it.
From Ryan Launer. So the whole show is going to be preparing for an event we already know won't happen in these people's lifetimes, and they won't get any warning out.
Well, I don't think they know that's like saying we're, all Christians are waiting for the second coming. We don't know when that will be. And that's not really what the show is going to be about. For us, the viewers, we know that. But within the confines of the show, they have to deal with the immediacy of what's going on with these royal families and what's going to happen with their lives tomorrow.
Well, and I think it also just serves as an additional catalyst too for why it's so important to stay in power. No, it's not just for our family. This is not just for us to benefit immediately. It is for the good of the kingdoms. All of the realms need us in power. Otherwise, all is lost.
And that's what belief and faith is. Mm-hmm. You have to have belief and you have to have faith in your institutions as well.
Yep.
And that's what keeps them going.
Mm-hmm. From Connor Cunningham, I really enjoy the show. I thought it was cool seeing all the callbacks and nod to the old show. And I really liked the idea of a Targaryen dragon dreams and have that shape them and why they invaded.
I mean, look, I love this. I'm really looking forward to what is it like to have a dragon-based culture. I want to see more of what that means. Do they worship these dragons? I mean, they clearly, this was the largest creature that ever lived, and before that giant skull. I mean, what if there is a little bit of the divine in these dragons?
Right. Well,
like for real?
Because everything we saw with Dany, right, was, oh no, those dragons are hers. They are her children. And in this, it was, oh no. People just think we're in control of them. That's not true.
Right.
This is all smoke and mirrors. So it's going to be really interesting how we see that jump too.
And I mean, I would suspect that we're going to find out a lot more about the intelligence of dragons and how they communicate with one another.
Mm-hmm. From Andrew Murray, for me, it didn't feel like a different time period. I get that, Andrew. I felt that way too because of the costuming. That was the thing I kind of kept harping on was fashion is very, very cyclical, and 172 years is a long time to be wearing the same garbs and the same hairstyles. But I think that was done intentionally. I don't want to speak for the creatives. I need to watch more on this, but it felt like they did that again for that brand recognition, that world building.
Well, it's interesting because if you look at Sandman, the 6th episode where you meet Hob Gadling and you go so hundreds of years apart, there isn't a lot of difference in the fashion between, say, the 13th and the 16th century. Mm-hmm. Watch some fashionistas going to write and go, well, Rob, that's not true. The couture of the land was very different.
We needed Designing Hollywood on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to figure out how this all came to fruition.
I mean, I do think that it is kind of important to have it has to feel like the same world because there's no different technology. I mean, human technology didn't progress. I mean, if you look at the 20th century, how we went from horses and buggies at the beginning of the century to now we're on electric guitars.
We're on electric cars, baby.
120 years later. I mean, there wasn't the same kind of technological or fashionista advancement as there was. So that didn't bother me.
That's fair. Elizabeth Gerardo. Even though I loved the episode, these characters are so unlikable, especially what the king did to his wife. She wasn't even told what they were going to do to her. All right. I'm going to get people angry. Historically, in the real world, that's what people did, y'all. Like, that was a literal, actual thing where doctors would go to the husband and talk to them about, hey, which one do you want to save? So this is not far off from a reality in which our ancestors have actually lived. So while we probably do not like that choice, I don't blame you, it was common practice in the world we live in. I don't know what to tell you. Like, historically, it's accurate, and for this kind of show, about monarchies,
people know just how, if you compare the way things are today to the way they were, say, 300 years ago, I think a lot of people would be shocked at how horrible daily life was for most people, and how good we have it now.
Very, very true. And I completely understand not liking the character and having an issue with that. I don't think everyone was completely unlikable, but that's just my opinion.
No, I mean, I was looking at how do these characters exist within these kinds of fantasy worlds.
Yeah.
And there were characters like, I thought it was really interesting. I liked the king. You know, he was not a bad person. He was not like Joffrey, or he was not like a Bolton. He really cared, and he loved his wife. But he was in a position, I mean, as the king, he has to, again, those rules and those traditions bound him to take action. And if he's going to save his male heir, which is now the big bone of contention in Westeros, is who's going to succeed the king. Mm-hmm. And right now, there's not a lot of. He knows that the council doesn't like his brother. And narratively, he got punished for his choice. Oh yeah, because it was, oh, you chose to try to save one of them. You don't get either of them. Nope. And he's going to deal with that the rest of his life. It's why he went to his daughter talking about how, like, he's wasted their relationship because he's been so focused on an heir. He is an incredibly, incredibly tragic character. You don't have to like him, but he's tragic. Yes. From Ryan Launer, the guy who plays King Jaehaerys in, oh yeah, we saw that one. Thank you so much. Movie fan 109. So weird seeing Matt Smith without a bow tie. Love the show, but just keep seeing the doctor in it. Well, I mean, you know, I can understand that we identify actors with their most signature roles, but I think something tells me that by the end of this first season, Matt Smith's signature role is going to be this one. I agree. From Tim Platt. Once again, the music is on point. I could listen to it all day. Yeah, right. I don't know how to pronounce Raymond. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm from Texas. I can't say anything. He's right. So good. His score. He also scored Pacific Rim. Oh, which is great. Oh, that's such a good soundtrack. Oh, such a good soundtrack. Yeah, I used to like go do my runs to the Game of Thrones soundtrack, yeah. So I'm really excited to go do this. From Daniel Vacara, I really liked the episode. I'm really interested when the time jump happens since we've seen the older Rhaenyra in trailers. Fire and Blood tells it all. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's another thing. I think we're going to see much more time pass on the show. At least that time jump, I think, next week. Maybe. What's interesting is on IMDb, everyone's listed for the duration of the episodes. So it's like they're all in 10 episodes. So maybe it's going to go back and forth. It could go back and forth, or it could have been, hey, this is going to spoil who's dead, because that's happened in the past. Right. So they might have just said, everyone's in every episode. Yeah, you're right. That's what we're doing. Right. So we'll see how that all pans out. Everyone lives, no one dies. Don't worry about it. No one. It's that episode of Doctor Who with Christopher Eccleston. Everyone lives, Rose. Everyone. No one dies this episode. From Andy, I hope South Park does a sequel parody satire of the show. The South Park Black Friday Game of Thrones episodes are so freaking classic. Already we're parodying shows now? That song is all Ray has sung. That's all he sings. Just while he's working, he's just humming it to himself, but you know he's thinking of those lyrics. He always is. He's singing them under his breath the whole time. Yeah. He's doing it right now. From Cutter Hale, amazing first episode. C-section was brutal. Great episode. It was a great episode, and it was brutal. All correct points, Cutter. Although I thought the blood was a little too red. I would have made it a little darker. Oh, a little darker. Yeah. Darker, the deep tissue blood. Yeah, it's yes. That's actually a great point. Yeah, wow. I mean, I know that fact that I used to work in special makeup effects, so I would have made that. It's my favorite thing about going to Namies of getting the different levels of blood. Yeah, and I used to work in the C-section department, so it makes sense. Jonathan, you jack of all trades. Wow. From Khalil Frederick. Loved the scene with Damon and his brothel girl. It and his scenes with his family. Cool to see they made sure throughout the show he's not simply a monster. Like we were saying, he's very layered. Yeah, and I think that girl who's smoking hot, that actress is the girl that starred in Devs.
Oh.
I think so. And she was also in Ex Machina, Alex Garland's Sonia Mitz.
I love Ex Machina.
Yeah.
I'll have to go check that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm right, but that's what she seemed. But she had really long hair, so I kept going, is that her? And I forgot to look.
Okay, we'll have to check that out.
Did we do Jay's or do we just do Khalil?
We just did Khalil,
Okay.
so Jay. Jay's gameplays. The king and queens are cousins, which is why the Targaryen family keeps having problems having children, or they end up being known as Mad Targaryens.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering when someone wrote in that they had a Baratheon, where I was like, no, that's Game of Thrones and this one.
No, they mentioned
they're all related.
But they did mention that there's a Baratheon because the queen who will never be, like her husband, who's black, belongs to another. Like I want to say he came from someplace outside of High Valyria and then came to West or something like
Lord
that.
of the Tides, right? That's
Yes.
his thing?
Yeah,
Because the Targaryens were just a house, and there used to be many other houses that had dragons.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They just happened to get out before the Doom of Valyria. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, here we go.
From Kylo Ken. Love the episode. If you read the novella, The Princess and the Queen by George R. R. Martin, you can see all the crumbs of some really effed up things to come in the future of the show. Can't wait.
Oh, well, Kylo, as long as that's happening, because I expect a lot of effed up things.
A lot of effed up things.
That's one of the appeals of this universe.
I figured this was probably our tamest episode that we're going to get.
I think so, too.
Whew. From Attack of the Mushi. The people soured after season 8 are missing out.
I always find it interesting. Like, why would somebody not watch another show if they didn't like how a different show ended?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what is this? Why not jump into this show? It's got different creators.
Yeah.
Different showrunners. Benioff and Weiss are not involved with the show.
Yeah,
but George R. R. Martin is.
I didn't like the ending of the last one.
No.
And I don't think you did either.
No,
right?
I hated it.
And I'd like to go back to Westeros because I really enjoyed that world. I really enjoyed the storytelling that was happening. I don't agree with how it ended, but that's how it ended. Why not give this other property a chance?
I'm going to protest by not watching a show that nobody will know I'm not watching.
Yeah. From Never Lose Your Nerd. House of the Dragon was great. Game of Thrones is back. Woo woo. Yeah, I enjoyed it too. Sam Fisher. Viserys is the first son of the king's second son. The queen who never was is the firstborn of the king's first son.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. The queen who never was, though, I think that's like a badass mantle, honestly, especially when she is like, that's right, I was meant to be queen. Just that little defiant walk up to give her praise to the jouster.
I think that's the power couple I'm going to look at most closely.
Yeah.
I'm like, they got something going on. There's something happening there.
From Mega Movie Z. Game of Thrones is back. One of the best first episodes of television. My only negative is that we didn't get that iconic theme song like we did in Game of Thrones.
I think we're going to get that theme song next week.
Exactly. I think this week we just had a lot of stuff to take into consideration. It's like, this is a ridiculous comparison. It's like when you're watching DuckTales and they don't do the full theme song, you know it's going to be a longer episode.
Well, also, I think if the show does do a time jump, that this is just it. Like you said, it was a prequel. It was a prelude to a prequel.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right.
Sounds like a Duran Duran song.
Ooh, it does.
It's true.
From A-Rod 2006, I am beyond excited to see Matt Smith choose clearly being set up as the Cersei Lannister of this series.
Or is he?
I don't know. I feel like he's going to be the bad boy that everyone's going to love to hate and then just love, maybe.
Yeah.
I could be very wrong. We're one episode in.
I think that if they did that, it would be if they're doing something that we're expecting, you shouldn't expect it. They're going to pull the wool out or pull the rug out from under us and take the wool out of our eyes or whatever. What is that expression? I don't know.
Pull the wool out from under you?
Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
or the rug out?
One of those
I don't know.
things.
Something. Colloquialisms.
Stuff's being pulled out from someplace.
Yeah, there you go. Jay's gameplay. Matt Smith was great. Can't wait to see more of him this season. Same here, Jay.
Agree.
Julio Barra had a baby a month ago. Episode was a hard watch. Ooh, yeah, that has to be very, very difficult. That was so visceral.
Yo.
But hey, you've got your healthy baby.
Yes.
Yeah. From Ismail Montoya.
Hello.
Hey guys, I've never seen anything of Game of Thrones, but I loved this. Where do I go from here? Or do I wait to finish this series? Oh.
Wow.
Man, you could just watch it. You could literally always have Game of Thrones because you could have once a week for this, but you could intersperse Game of Thrones in between.
Oh.
Or just wait. Yeah, I mean, you don't know how many seasons this is going to run.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones takes place hundreds of years later, so
It just depends on your speed, really. If you are dying to get more Game of Thrones, you can totally go and watch the other stuff. Or you can do like Rob was saying before. This could be your introduction and you just watch it all in order.
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong answer. You do what you feel
Yeah.
like doing.
However the spirit moves you, my friend.
just make cookies.
Yeah. Jason Bryden. I think Damon will be more anti-hero, not villain. That's where I'm leaning right now, too.
Yep,
Yeah?
I am too.
Okay.
Subversion.
From Daniel Vakura. Everyone thinking Matt Smith is being set up as the villain. Oh, you poor souls. If you only knew the truth. Time jumps, baby. I just wonder if Olivia Cook remains as the older Alicent the entire time. She does not. It's another actress, and the casting is spot on.
Spot on. I mean, you look at that trailer and like,
I had to go to IMDb and be like, oh, that is two different people.
right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But what great casting.
Oh, well, I'm glad to know that our instincts might serve us well here, Rob. That's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll say.
Wonderful. And that's all of our super chats?
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, guys. We really, really appreciate it. Rob, you want to take us home on this one?
Well, I want to thank everybody for watching this first episode, first of 10
Yes.
of our House of Dragon after shows. I think we're going to do pre-shows, aren't we?
We are.
We're going to do some pre-shows too. So twice a week we can talk Game of Thrones, which is going to be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I, of course, want to thank my esteemed colleague, Kris Carr, and of course, John Campea. I want to thank our producer, Jonathan Voico, and especially want to thank all of our viewers out there who support this channel through Super Chats and give us something great to talk about. And we love to hear your thoughts and analysis of this show. And we've got more pre-shows this week and more after shows for She-Hulk.
Yeah.
And then we've got the John Campea Show. We got shows coming for, of course, Lord of the Rings. We've got shows coming for Andor.
And when we don't have shows, we have open mics. So
Open mics, which we can't wait to do more with you.
I know, I'm excited.
And we've got other shows coming up with us, which we'll talk about later.
Yep. It's a good time to be on the John Campea Show.
It really is. And I guess on that note, do you have anything final to say to our...
Just thank you guys so much for being here. We literally can't do the show without you. So until next time, guys, have a good one.
Dracarys?
Bum.